The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum has been the standard for investor education in Jamaica for decades, where top financial minds provide comprehensive insight into the market and ideal investment strategies and opportunities for our clients. Celebrating 37 years of excellence in investment banking. The Mayberry Virtual Investor Forum, investing in Jamaica.
Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to our Virtual Investor Forum. My name is Rachel Curlew, Assistant Vice President of Investment Banking, and I'll be your host for today. If you're familiar with our forums, you know that we make it our business to deliver you insights into companies listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. We also feature some of the brightest minds right here on our platform. Today's guest is the true embodiment of such, Mr. Lasco Chin, founder and executive chairman of the Lasco Group of Companies. Joining us is also Mr. James Rawle, managing director of Lasco Manufacturing Limited, and Mr. John De Silva, managing director of Lasco Distributors Limited. We'll be giving them a proper introduction and a warm welcome in a few minutes, after which we'll get into our discussions on the company. If you're a fan of the content, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date with the channel. We upload content just like this every week. Viewers were also encouraged to participate in a trivia on our social media page. Winners will be announced at the end of the program. If you're looking to embark on your first investment journey, you should take that first step with Mayberry. So follow us on social media at Mayberry INVJA to learn more about how you can get started today. Now, let's talk a bit more about the Lasco Group of Companies. The Lasco Group of Companies is a Jamaican holding company with operations in food products, financial services, and distribution. Lasco Distributors Limited was founded in September 1988. It has seen massive growth over the past 3 decades due to its approach to delivering affordable products and services. In spite of its continued success, the company continues to innovate as a brand. Over the years, Lasco Distributors has devoted itself to investing in people and technology to better serve its customers in Jamaica and in the region. Lasco Manufacturing Limited was incorporated in October 1994 through the merger of Lasco Foods and Lasco Foods Limited. Similar to Lasco Distributors, Lasco Manufacturing is constantly seeking innovation in technology and product development, which explains the massive success of these companies throughout the years. In October 2020, the companies became publicly listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the junior market to be exact. Now let's introduce the Honorable Lasco Chin. He is the founder and executive chairman of the Lasco affiliated companies. We know him as one of Jamaica's most distinguished and respected entrepreneurs. Mr. Chin is a pioneer and exporter, philanthropist, and a much honored leader in Jamaica and the Caribbean. It goes without saying that he leads one of the most successful group of companies. And today, we get to discuss said group of companies with the man himself. As mentioned, he's also joined by Mr. James Rawle and Mr. John De Silva. Welcome to the Lasco team, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mayberry, for the opportunity to speak at this investor forum and for your continued interest in the Lasco affiliated companies. It was about 18 or so months ago that Lasco Distributors and Lasco Manufacturing participated in a similar forum, and much has happened since then. So I welcome the opportunity to brief and update investors on developments since then and we'll start by looking at the performance of both companies during the last fiscal year, which, as you know, ended March 31st, 2022. Of course, these results were already presented along with detailed discussions in the respective annual report and at the recently concluded AGMs. We continue to record strong performances, building on equally solid results over the prior 3 to 4 years. In terms of revenue and profit, growth, and all the other key financial ratios and metrics. The evolution of revenue and net profit is shown in the attached graphs. In fact, will you show the graph, please? In fact, if you should look at the combined profit of the two companies for the, all right, keep it at that for the time being. At the last year, it is over $2.7 billion. And if you add the net profit of the third affiliated Lasco, it comes to over $3 billion. Ms. Jason Hall Tracy, MD for Lasco Financing, was on your program 2 weeks ago. So therefore, this week we will be concentrating on Lasco Manufacturing and Lasco Distribution. No, you're gone too far. We're still on the first one. The combined excellent performance is indicative of companies with clear and sustainable growth strategies, excellence in execution, and sound overall management. And you will find that for the past 4 years in Lasco Distributor, we have been consistently increasing our profits, not only every year, but every quarter. And we come now to the other, both companies have paid down debt. Let's see the other one, Lasco Manufacturing. Let's go to Lasco Manufacturing file. The continued excellent performance is indicative of companies or Lasco Manufacturing that's up. You will also see that every year we have increased profit, except in 2020 when employees bought shares and we had to write off $185 million. That's the reason why it was not on a steady growth. So both companies have paid down. The continued excellent performance is indicative of the companies with clear and sustainable growth strategies, excellence in execution, and sound overall management. Both companies have paid down debt and are in the expansion mode. Our cash flow position is strong in both companies, and dividend payments have been increasing every year over the last 5 years. We weathered the COVID pandemic and in fact delivered very strong growth and profits, reflecting the quality of our leadership teams, agility, the strength of our brands, and the resilience of the companies, and of course, our continued investments in operation. Next slide. The results of the first 6 months in this fiscal year have just been filed with the JSE, and the trend of profitability growth and continue despite the severe challenges that businesses are facing with supply chain issues and inflationary pressures. Revenues and profit are up with respect to the comparative period last year. You'll note that both companies and With our philosophy, the sales and profit have increased still every quarter, and both companies produce a profit of over 1.469 billion, and just for half year. So for the year, that will be almost $3 billion. And certainly with Lasco Finance, that will well be over 3 billion. We are continuing our digitalization initiative to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the operation. Exports have been developing very nicely and remain a major focus, and we continue to allocate resources to fund our marketing and consumer engagement activities. Rachel, you can hand over now to the other two MDs.
Thank you. Thank you for that great presentation, Lascelles. Just confirming, do you both have a presentation?
No, right?
Great. So I'd like, before we get into our question and answer segment, I would like to do just our quick independent analysis on both the companies. So we're going to start with LASM. That's Lasco Manufacturing Distribution Limited, sorry. Let me pull this up on my tablet. For the 6 months period ending September 2022, the company booked revenues of 5.4 billion, up 17% from what they reported the prior year's period. They recorded operating profits of 1.9 billion. The company did see a decline in operating income, well, an operating loss of 23 million relative to an income of 50 million booked the prior year. After factoring moderate increases in operating expenses, the company booked operating profits of 1.2 billion. They had a reduction in finance cost, which led to pre-tax profits of 4.2 billion, and finally net profits for the period of 882 million, a 13% improvement relative to the period last year. Examining their balance sheet, the company recorded total assets of 12.5 billion, total equity of 9.8 billion, and finally total liabilities of only $2.6 billion. Again, this is a 4% reduction in liabilities relative to the same period last year. Looking at some key statistics, the stock is currently trading at $4 with a PE of 9 times. The junior market is trading at an average PE of 16 to 17 times, so the stock is heavily discounted here. LASM has a trailing EPS of 44 cents and actual trailing earnings of $1.8 billion. We're seeing here where the stock traded at a 52-week high of $5.90 and a low of $3.75. On the next slide, we see the company continues to grow its quarterly profits. For the quarter ending September 2022, they recorded a 23% increase in profits relative to the same quarter last year. They also recorded their highest revenue for the quarter, their highest profits for the quarter of 522 million back in March of this year. In fact, examining the full financial year ending March 2022, the company grew both their top and bottom line in the double digits. They also have 1.6 billion in cash, so we're definitely going to ask what the plans are for that later. But I think it's a great company poised for continued growth. Moving on to the next slide, we're seeing where the stock traded at a high of $5.77 just in March of this year, but has trended back down to the $4 region. But as interest rates are predicted to decline and PE ratios trend back up, once a company continues to deliver strong results, I don't see where the stock can't trade up back between a PE of 16 to 17 times or even 18 to 20 times when the junior market is predicted to recover sometime next year. So let's see how that plays out. Moving on to Lasco Distributors, Last D. Let me just wait until I bring that up. Great. For the 6 months ended September 2022, the company reported profits of revenue of 12.8 billion, an 11% increase relative to last year. Gross profits of 2.2 billion. Another general increase in operating expenses, which resulted in profit from operations of $719 million. They booked pre-tax profit of $718 million, and finally net profit of $587 million, a 20% increase relative to last year. This translated to an EPS of 17 cents. Examining their balance sheet, again, strong asset base. They reported total assets of $13.4 billion. Total liabilities of $5.8 billion, and finally shareholders' equity of $5.7 billion. Looking at some key statistics, the stock is currently trading at $3.09 with a PE of almost 10 times. Again, comparing to where the junior market is, the stock is relatively discounted. They have a trailing EPS of 32 cents and actual trailings of $1.1 billion. 52-week high of $4.05 and a low of $2.66. Moving on to the next slide. Again, we are seeing here strong quarterly profit movements. The company reported a 33% increase in quarterly profits for the September period relative to the same quarter last year. I actually think for the first quarter of this year, they recorded their highest quarterly results of $324 million. So congrats to the team on that. Moving to the next slide. This slide shows how the stock has been trading in the last 2 years. I mentioned earlier the stock traded at a 52-week high of $4.05. The stock is trading close to the $3 region now. But going back to 2017, the stock traded as high as $5.95. So there is potential for the stock to improve on its price, especially given the general prediction in interest rates that I spoke about earlier. So I don't see why the stock can't trade back to $5 or $6 within the next 6 to 12 months. So again, let's see how that plays out. So this is the end of our independent review. So we're going to turn over to our question and answer segment. So my first question here will be geared towards James and John. What has led LASM and LASD to be generating more cash now than before the pandemic? I recall that LASD has about $2 billion in cash and LASM about $1.6 billion in cash. So what are the plans for this cash?
The first part of the question, what has led to this cash generation? It's the main driver of the cash generation, cash flow that we have is the profit delivering the high profits we have. If you look, for example, at LASM, over the 5 years, we have delivered a net profit of, over the last 4 years, about $5 billion. Thanks to that, we're very liquid. In addition to that, you'll recall that during the pandemic period, we rephased a number of our capital investment ventures because of the problems we had getting supplies, getting technicians and all of that. So capital investments were tempered. And today we're sitting on between cash and short-term investments of $2.87 billion. Your mention of 1.6 billion is due to cash and bank balances. We have short-term investments, total another $1.2 billion. So we're cash rich, you can say that. And what is this being used for? We have ramped up our investments, the investments that were paused. We're back on track. And so a lot of that cash will be utilized. We have also paid good dividends, in June, end of June, we pay over $413 million in dividends, an increase on the $300 million what was paid the year before. So we have investments on track, on train, and this will utilize the cash. We're looking for opportunities for growth, and we know we have to invest one way or another in capacity, in new technologies, and some of this cash will be used for that. The rest is using the cash for working capital. That's it for Lasco Manufacturing. I'm sure John will comment on Lasco Distributors.
Certainly, thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for the question, Rachel. So, in a very similar story to what has transpired at Lasco Manufacturing and Lasco Distributors, the main driver, obviously, for the cash position at the end of the year has been the improvement in net profit. And I think it's important to understand, I think you asked a good question, what drove that? And what we like to stress here, that's the result of a flawless execution of a strategic framework that we have been working on for some time. So it's not the result of one-off big transactions or disposals. This is really the result of ongoing operations, organic growth. And we've been very focused, knowing coming into operating in very volatile times, having a strong cash position insulates you, makes you more resilient, and prepares you for opportunities that you can capitalize on. So once you've generated that cash at the top line through the profitability, the next step was to ensure that that is reflected in our balance sheet. And that was a result of, again, very careful inventory planning, as well as managing both sides of the working capital, accounts payable, as well as accounts receivable. And the plans for the deployment of the cash are, well, first and foremost, to continue to invest in our own operations, because we've been able to deliver 11% organic growth, a 33% growth in net profit for one quarter by investing in our own operations, training, technology, as well as infrastructure, some plans that would have been mentioned in the past, but also a significant swing into technology and to really drive improvements in the way we run our business.
Okay, thank you for that. Another one from me. Jimmy, last year you mentioned your powder manufacturing facility was completed. I think this was in February 2021. It has been operational for a full 12 months now. How has that been going?
It has been going great. It was an expansion of the powder manufacturing facility, and that has delivered results. In the powder segment, the nutritious powder segment of the market, we have had 3 excellent years. We saw during the pandemic increase in sales volumes, both locally and in the export market of powders. And that was because during the pandemic, people were at home. And so a category like the powders, the Lasco food drink powders and milk powders grew because there was more at-home consumption. While on the other hand, the liquid beverage categories suffered some decline as the out-of-home consumption, schools, the entertainment segment of the economy were all, and hospitality segments were all closed. So the investments were made in expanding the powders operation really proved useful, and we were able to expand our volumes without much problems. And it continues to perform that way. The powder segment of our business, the nutritious powder segment is really the flagship of what we do. And that is sacrosanct to us. We look after it very carefully. And that's where a lot of investment continue to go, to grow the portfolio, our own brands, to expand the portfolio. And now we have the capacity to do it in an efficient way. So that's operating quite well and yielded the expected results.
I agree, which was delivered in your strong financial performance. Another question for you, Jimmy. You indicated last year in our investment forum that you're aiming to increase your exports as a percentage of sales from 6% to 15%. How is that going?
Yeah, well, let me explain a little bit about the export. We're talking exports from products produced in Jamaica, which are in the liquid category and the powder category. So we're growing export, but the Lasco distributors, John and his team, are actually executing through sub-distributors in the overseas market. And the target is still to grow export to be minimum 15% of revenue over a reasonable time period, 3 to 5 years. We have seen, and John will comment on this, very positive development. We are getting there. It will take a little bit more time. We have restructured how we go to market in these territories. Export is one of the important drivers to grow a business because Jamaica is a relatively small economy. And I think we made the point at the last forum that the products we have are not only adapted to Jamaican consumers, but to the diaspora, the Jamaican diaspora, and to the Caribbean people. The taste profile, the nutritional value, the refreshing value is the underlying feature throughout the Caribbean. So I'll ask John to comment further on that. He will comment on how we are going to market in the region, how we're exploiting the down trade in the region, and that's starting to bear fruits. But remember that this is a critical component of our strategy for growth going forward. John?
Thank you, Jimmy. So just to continue along that vein, as we had explained and confirmed earlier, certainly exports for the very same reasons that Lasco Manufacturing is pursuing exports, very, very relevant to Lasco distributors. One of the key things that we have done is really to look at the best practices of go-to-market strategy here in Jamaica, and we are deploying that through various training and discussions with our selected distributors in our key markets. We've seen tremendous growth in obviously our exports to the US. I can tell you that's going quite well. And no surprise with the investment we've made in Guyana recently. A big part of what would have raised the awareness and visibility around our portfolio would have been our association and sponsorship with the CPLT 20, where Lasco Food Drink was appointed the official nutrition sponsor for the CPLT 20, which is a massive tournament viewed all across the world. And we've seen a tremendous benefit from both consumer communication as well as executing in trade. We've also changed a bit the way we tackle certain markets, taking a much more differentiated approach according to the size of the prize and our ability to win in each of these markets. And I can tell you, the top line for the overall company is quite solid, but the growth in the export markets is actually well ahead of what you've seen reflected at the company level.
Thank you for that. I'm actually excited to see how that plays out. I mean, you have healthy cash on your balance sheet, so you're definitely poised for that investment. But again, John rather, very, very, very low debt on your balance sheet. What's the motive for this?
The debt, certainly there's some good reasons that one would want to carry debt. Right now, we're in the position where all of our funding requirements can be met through internally generated funds. And if there is a good enough reason where we may want to take on debt to finance a particular transaction or expansion of a facility, it is certainly something that would be contemplated and considered by the board. But right now, I think what we are delivering and what we have is exactly in line with our objectives and our targets.
Okay, thank you. And remind us, the export opportunities, you mentioned that you're targeting Colombia and Dominican Republic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, with any new business opportunity that any company would want to consider, we would certainly look at the size of the prize and the ability to win. Come back to that. The cost and the effort required to enter a particular market is generally fixed. So it makes sense, therefore, to move or to focus your efforts on those markets where you can generate the biggest possible return. The Dominican Republic has a population of over 11 million people. Colombia has over 52 million people. Both countries have been growing very, very well from a macroeconomic standpoint. We've seen at a consumer habit and preference, as well as a trade structure level, very, very similar to the Caribbean markets that we know very well. These are also markets which are quite open to international trade discussions. You've seen a lot of dialogue already started between the Dominican Republic and CARICOM. And last but not least, we have great relationships with potential partners in both of these markets. And these are markets that some of us know here personally. I lived in the Dominican Republic for several years, and I think there's a massive opportunity for us to expand into those markets.
Okay, great. So walking away a little bit from the expansion, tell us how does LASEM, well, what are you doing to maintain your competitive advantage? I know that you had a special team crafted for differentiating your market strategy, but tell us a bit more on that.
You're asking the question of LASEM or LASD?
LASEM or LASD, whichever.
Well, let me comment on
Sure.
it. Our strategy for remaining competitive is quite simple but very intense. It's called continuous improvement in all we do, end to end throughout the organization. How do we improve effectiveness and efficiencies? A lot of our investments have been focused on exactly that, trending towards improved utilization of technology to make us more efficient, to eliminate waste, and to deliver good results. In other words, to keep manufacturing costs as low as possible while delivering the highest possible quality in our products. Continuous improvement is a journey, and we started that journey maybe 4 years ago, and the objective is to keep each year, each day, improving what we do. So that is reflected in your cost of production, which is going to be reflected in your cost to the consumer and your selling price to the consumer. That is a big program, and it's a program without end. As I said before, a lot of the investments are focused on that. So automation is one component, but training and development and retention of talent is another key one. Because as we apply more automation, more technology, we need a higher level, a more intense level of workmanship to service what we do. And that is the central plank of what we do in terms of continuous improvement. Another aspect is to look at purchasing efficiencies. How do we secure our raw and packing materials? Do we have the best, the most optimal arrangements with suppliers? And our suppliers are located all across the world. We have suppliers coming out of China. We have suppliers coming out of the Netherlands, out of Hungary. We have suppliers from the Caribbean. We have suppliers from the United States. We have suppliers from South America. We have suppliers from Panama. We develop intense, close partnerships with our suppliers, and typically we have more than one supplier for a given commodity or given material. And we tend to form partnerships that can span several years. And so it gives us leverage to negotiate the best price for the best quality. So it's all encompassing, and the aim of that is to keep prices, the end product price, as low as possible to facilitate consumers, but also to deliver the margins that will give us the possibility of having a decent return to stakeholders and in particular to the shareholders. It's an ongoing battle, but in a manufacturing operation, it is the most important thing you can do. It's not reasonable to be asking consumers to pay for inefficiencies, and too often we see that.
Agreed there, Jimmy. I think Lasco is a high quality, low cost product. But the supply
We like to call
chain,
it value for money.
Value for money, absolutely agreed. Value for money, yes, I absolutely agree there. But with the whole supply chain disruptions and the increase in inflation cost for your raw materials, I know that you've locked into contracts, but how has this affected your pricing model?
It has, it has, because we have seen spiraling increase in material costs, especially in the last 6 to 8 months, as a outcome of the COVID pandemic and the disruption in shippings and all of that, and then more recently due to the conflict in Eastern Europe, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. So we have been faced with the challenge of absorbing higher costs across the board. Locally, energy costs are very high. We all know that. We have had to pay our local contractors, our hauliers and service providers more, given what local inflation is. So the challenge was, how do we manage in such an environment to maintain reasonable prices? And the first thing is that we took price increases. In the last year, we have taken 2 or 3 price increases, but we do it in a very responsible and measured way. It's not just passing on prices to the consumers. And I think we said it in several reports. We did not compensate in our price increase, just pass on the price increases. We took a lower increase in cost and looked internally as to how we can compensate that. So you'll find that our selling and administrative expenses or operational expenses actually fell during the period, and that has helped us to keep prices within a reasonable range. But it's again like continuous improvement, a constant process. And the mantra is that when we have to take price increases to maintain reasonable margins, and we have even reduced some margins, we try to compensate that with savings on the operational side. And that we have been able to do. Now, it seems as if, and I said seems because we are cautiously optimistic, that prices have stabilized somewhat, global prices, but the situation is still volatile. It seems as if shipping costs are trending down. It's not massive yet, so we are hopeful for that. But, we're still quite vulnerable to global pressures and global developments. And what is happening in Europe with energy prices, with the Ukrainian conflict, isn't auguring very well for people like us. But we remain cautiously optimistic that we can maintain our position of being reasonably in price increase, being measured and being responsible in how we pass on price increases to the consumers. And wherever we can improve on internal efficiencies, we use that to compensate for some of the increases that we have to pass on.
Thank you for that, and I trust that you'll keep the mantra of value for money. Mr. Chin, I have a question for you. Both LASD and LASEM, both companies have grown their revenue at a compounded annual growth rate of just over 10%. What makes you proud looking back at this 10-year journey?
Well, in many years ago, we were Lasco and manufacturing were really at a really efficient phase in the growth. But with the 2 professional managers in both Jimmy and John, they have really added much more efficiency that we, in our younger days, we could never find, because they have been well-trained and well-schooled. So at this stage, as you say, I am really very, very happy to see the development and to know, Rachel, that this development is not the end, it's just a start. So there's going to be very efficient, very efficient operation moving forward. And these are just the basic things we're doing. We're going to do many other exciting things. But one of the disappointments, and as you say, that our ratios in stock price have been very low. And I hope with this program that people see the constant improvement in not only in sales and profit, but in efficiency. And we are hoping that the public will see the value. And regardless of what happens, we're going to work very hard. We're going to continue improving the profit, and we're going to continue improving the dividend. We have been paying the highest dividend continuously. And just like profit and efficiency, we're going to continue doing that too with dividends.
Thank you for that. The Lascos were one of the first junior market listings back in 2020, Lascelles. What gave you this motivation?
Well, you know, our problem, Rachel, is that in those days, we're growing too fast. When we grow at 20 to 30% many times, we do not have the cash to fund the business. And when you look, the more you grow, the more cash you need to buy stocks, the more stocks you have on the road, the more debt you have on the road. And many times we were struggling to pay for raw materials. And these big multinationals, if you're late for one day, that's going to affect your delivery for 3 weeks. And so I am really happy that we had the junior market, because when the junior market came in, that, and I will just say this too, I don't know if you know that, Rachel, but when we sold 20% of the shares in the 3 companies, it was valued at about 415 million. And that was my personal money, because those are my shares that are sold. But in the interest of the companies and in the interest of the cash flow problem that we had, I didn't take one single cent. I pumped back the whole 415 million in the 3 companies. And you see the results immediately. 6 months after that money went in, last manufacturing profit increased by about 530%. And that's distributors by about 320. And I think finance was about 100. So that really made a big difference. To me, what I get out of the company is not as important as the growth of the company and as the growth of the share price, so as to benefit the shareholders. So this is my philosophy. And so, Rachel, you can imagine how happy I am when the profits keep growing quarter after quarter. So thanks to these, not only 2 gentlemen, the 3 managing directors with Jason Hall. And with my involvement, I'm still excited about running the company from the top and looking and really the growth, big growth as we used to happen in the younger days, and when our sales and profit were constrained by cash flow. Now that we're in the stock market, that makes us open other opportunities of funding. So to me, the future is really exciting, and we're looking forward to really, I'm going to say, Jimmy, don't like when I say the word fantastic growth. Okay, I'll stop there.
Thank you for that. We have a few questions here on social media. I'm going to turn to that. We have a question here from Brandon Thomas. For organic growth, are there plans to introduce new product and/or revenue lines? And for inorganic growth, are there any immediate plans to execute acquisitions?
Well, for organic growth, we do have a stable of a suite of new products, and by the first quarter of next year, calendar year, you should see some products being added to the portfolio. We do a lot of R&D, research and development, to improve our products and to launch new products to complement the range of what we have. and because this is a constant source of revenue growth. In fact, we have a metric, a KPI, which addresses the proportion of revenue that should come from new or renovated products over a given time period, over 3 years. And the purpose of that is to stimulate innovation. So that is one thing we are doing. You asked earlier on about the cash reserves that we have, and acquisitions are not excluded. And at the recent annual general meeting, I addressed that. We are constantly looking for opportunities to expand and to get inorganic growth from that. There are a few criteria. Any business or brand that we acquire shouldn't be dilutive to our margins. It doesn't make sense to spend valuable money on something that is a commodity and is not going to command reasonable margins as we are having now. So we are looking at several possibilities, being very careful about it. That's one of the reasons we have reserves, that we can enter new businesses, we can form partnerships. So on both fronts, organic growth and inorganic growth, we're actively looking for the right fit. The new products that we have will be coming on stream during the year, starting early next year. And they will be both in the powder segment of the operation and in the liquid beverage segment of the operation. As I said, innovation is the lifeblood of any business. We not only innovate with products, but we also innovate the processes and procedures that we have. But the specific question is about, yes, we have new products to add that will complement what we already have. And we're constantly on the lookout for and evaluated several opportunities in the past year or so, about possible acquisition of brands that we could incorporate. The idea is to have acquisition should be a bolt-on affair. But one of the criteria that we have is that it should make economic sense and should not be dilutive to our margins.
Thank you.
If I could add to that, Richard,
Sure.
quickly, I think it's a critical point. And on the Lasco distributors side, one thing that we've been very clear on is really developing that expertise in marketing, sales, and distribution of consumer goods in the nutrition, hygiene, and healthcare sectors. So we distribute other products in addition to the Lasco owned portfolio. Actually, just about 25% of our revenue comes from non-Lasco owned products. You're looking at over $5.5 billion. And a lot of the innovation and new product extensions, in addition to what is being done on the Lasco manufacturing side, we've also introduced new products within existing portfolios. We have the Unilever portfolio, which continues to bring to market fantastic innovation around personal care. We've also recently launched some other products with partnerships with companies out of Asia and France. Fantastic aloe vera drink called Eloa. We've also launched Slim Fast, which is a well-known weight management brand that's distributed by Lasco. We've gotten into the cookies, crackers, and wafers business. These are all launches that have taken place in the last three to 4 months, as well as teas. And I can say now, building on the expertise that would have been developed through our relationship with Unilever and understanding the dynamics of what drives home care, for the future, very near future, we'll be expanding into well-known brands that service and meet the do-it-yourself home repair. And I can tell you now, because it's going to hit the market tomorrow, it's called the Flex Seal portfolio, which is very well known for do-it-yourself. And again, that gives us access into new channels. So as Jimmy said, innovation is part and parcel of our overall growth strategy.
Thank you for that. I have a question here from Khalil Mitchell for Mr. Chin. What are the actions being taken to ensure the future of executive leaders of the group, given the maturity of some persons?
Well, in that area, I'm quite satisfied too. We have 3 great professional managers, and going forward, the company will always be managed by professional managers. And we are, and these managers, quite an expert, not only in the way how they operate, but they are training the top managers and also the middle managers, that we have a solid foundation for the company going forward. Before, in my days, I mean, I used to manage, but I wasn't that good at managing, motivating to get many of the managers to get their maximum. But I think that is what I see is happening now. And for the years to come, it is going to be exciting. And although I'm getting on in years, I'm still very agile. I still I exercise a lot and so on. So whatever years I have, and with the professional management that will continue to manage the company in the years, I see again from that perspective really great future companies from the three Lasco affiliated companies.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chin. I don't agree where you say, you're not doing a good job of managing. You clearly hired two capable gentlemen that are doing wonderful. So clearly you're doing a good job at managing. The
Yes.
final question from me.
He's just being modest.
I
Well,
agree.
I don't know. I don't know if you'd like me to say this, but I will just say this. I'm tempted because to show the vibrancy of the company. Look at John. John was a big manager in Nestle's. He went on as a managing director in Unilever Trinidad, which is in charge of all the Caribbean countries. And for John to leave the managing director's position to come to Lasco must tell you something. I see John has doing a fantastic job. He's no fool, and he's not going to leave a good job to come for a job which is not better or more fantastic. So that is one example. And of course, to talk about Mr. Jimmy Roll, who has 42 years of experience in managing Nestle's, and the type of expertise that he brings. So that's why when Jimmy was at retirement and we were discussing, and I tell, after a while, Jimmy seemed to be enjoying his retirement. And I said, Jimmy, listen, you just cannot die without giving Lasco your expertise, and in extension, Jamaica. And of course, when Jimmy came to look at the plant, he was flabbergasted. He was accustomed to having Nestle's top equipment and so on. When he came, I mean, I would like Jimmy to repeat that and tell you his experience. He couldn't believe the quality and the expert equipment that we have been using. We did spend a lot of the money that we saved to buy these equipment. So he was flabbergasted, and I hope, and I think Jimmy is now enjoying his expertise to see how he has helped Jamaica and Jamaicans and Lasco and Jamaicans. Jimmy, I would like you to call on you to put you in a position to say something about that, whether I'm telling a lie or not.
No, you make some very important point. I was enjoying my retirement, and then by some subterfuge, you got me out in the plant to look at it and the operations, and I was really blown apart when I saw the level of technology being deployed in Lasco. And it came to me that if we could really get to the point of exploiting that, then we could see, to use your word, fantastic growth. And I think that is what we have been trying to do and succeeding to a measure. The investments were always focused, and to give Lasco its due, Lasco always went for the best in terms of equipment and technology. And that is what inspired me to join the company. And the question is, am I enjoying it?
Yes.
Well, when you have it, that's for other people to say. I mean, I would do something that I can't be totally involved in. So it is a good ride. And the point that Lass is making about succession, to use one simple word, is that one of the charges that we have is to improve the professional level of the organization. And in both Lasco distributors and Lasco manufacturing, and we spend a lot of time on talent development. And so I have no doubt that the company is in good hands, as we're training up the middle managers at the second level, and the bench is becoming stronger and stronger each day. And that's a measure of success of a founder and manager, when you have a bench, like in any sport, that can come on and take over. And that is one of the big focus we have. It's an area of big investments. I think John mentioned that. We spend a lot of money on training and development. Okay.
Thank you for that. Thanks for that. And to add to your point, Lascelles, I think you have an excellent team. I'll use your word as well as Jimmy. The company is delivering fantastic results. I mean, combined 30 billion in revenue and 2 billion in profit. I'm sure your shareholders are happy for those strong results. And thanks for that's a wrap for the question and answer segment. As promised, we'll now announce the winners for our giveaways. Congratulations to Melissa 401, Dominic CJA1, and Kimmy. Congratulations. Our team will reach out via our social media platform so you can collect your prizes courtesy of Lasco, Jamaica. And that's it for today's discussion. I'd like to thank our viewers for tuning in today. Your support is always appreciated. Of course, I must also thank our fellow panelists, Mr. Lascelles Chin, Mr. Raul, and of course, Mr. John De Silva. To our viewers, be sure to look out for updates on our virtual investor forum by following us on social media. We share our live stream dates and upcoming guests on our official social media pages. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mayberry Investments Limited. Keep safe and remember, wise investors, slow and steady wins the race. And again, thank you to the Lasco team for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Okay, we can leave now.
All right.
The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum has been the standard for investor education in Jamaica for decades, where top financial minds provide comprehensive insight into the market and ideal investment strategies and opportunities for our clients. Celebrating 37 years of excellence in investment banking. The Mayberry Virtual Investor Forum, investing in Jamaica.